What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle.
Greetings, welcome back. And you've done it. Today is the day. For most of us, multiplication is kind of in the rearview mirror, and today's the day we dip our toe into the swimming pool of long division. But we're not going to just dive right in the deep end, so don't worry. We're going to wade in slowly in my swimming pool analogy. So all you're going to need for today really is going to be your math journal, because we're going to start by taking some notes, just like we did when we started talking about slash drop erase for the first time. I want to make sure we're using the same language when we're talking about how to do some division. So grab your math journal, a pencil, and then follow along with me. Let's take some notes. Let's start by getting to the section of our journals that we use to take notes in. You can see in the middle of it there's kind of a gap where it's hooked together. If we open up to that gap, you can see we have our math notes set up from last time still with our slash, our drop, and our erase. And we filled up this page pretty nicely. So the math notes we're going to take today, I'm just going to turn the page one page over, and this one's nice and clean. So this is what I'm going to start with. And I might just start by putting the date up in the corner so we can see what's going on. So in this case, we'll do 11-6. I'm just going to put a line so we know this is when we're taking these notes. And this may seem kind of odd, but to start with division, we're going to look at a multiplication problem. So I want you to write this multiplication problem. I'm going to put a 3 times 4 equals 12. All right, so I've made this multiplication problem. Notice I've made each number about 2 squares big, and I left a lot of space all around here because we're going to do some labeling. I don't want a nice little tiny one. At any point in this, if you need to pause and wait and come back, that's fine. So you're just going to produce the same page that I'm making right now. So in this case, each of these parts of a multiplication problem have a specific name. All right, they're all numbers, right? But in this case, a 3 is what's called a factor. F-A-C-T-O-R. Oh, there's the evening bell, right? So the 3 is a factor. F-A-C-T-O-R. The 4 is also a factor. Later on in the year, when we start getting closer to deep into fractions, we'll talk more about factors and multiples and those things. But bottom line, a factor is a number, or 2 factors are a number that you use to multiply together to make this. And the answer to a multiplication problem is called a product. Oops, make my arrow there. So in this case, the 3 is a factor, the 4 is a factor, and the 12 is the product. Okay? So we might remember things called fact families, right? So the 3, the 4, and the 12 go together. The 4 times 3 is 12, 3 times 4 is 12. 12 divided by 4 is 3, 12 divided by 3 is 4. They're all going to hang out together. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to slide over a little bit, and I know it's tempting when we divide. I know it would be tempting to do this, like 3 divided by 4 is 12, right? We do not stack division problems up. Subtraction, yes. Multiplication, yes. Addition, yes. Division, no. We're not stacking. So everything you've learned about how to do a math problem is about to change a little bit. So we need to put this into, I'm just going to use the term house, right? It looks like a little house. So here is the symbol, right? It's like a line that goes across, and then it doesn't go straight down. It kind of curves in like this. So that's kind of an empty division problem. So when I talk about a house, like we're going to put this thing in the house there. So we're going to use the same 3 numbers, but in the division problem, they're going to be called different things, okay? And so we're going to do this one twice, right? So in this first one, I'm going to put one of the 4s out here, or one of the numbers out here. Put the 4 outside of the house. I'm going to put the 12 inside of the house. And that leaves the 3 to go on top of the house. Now, I'm going to write some stuff down here. Don't worry about it. We're going to teach it. I'm just going to put another minus and another 12 and a line and a 0. But we're not worried about this part yet. I just wanted to make sure you knew that needed to go in there. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to take these same arrows and I'm going to go one of my factors, the 4, is now here, right? So he was a factor and now he's over there. The 3 as a factor is now there. And the 12 as a product is now sitting right up there. So it's the same 3 numbers. Remember, we keep talking about the opposite of multiplication is division, and the opposite of division is multiplication. And here is kind of like, almost like proof, right? Like, hey, look, all the 3 numbers are there still. And in this case, we would say 12, the number inside the house is the first one we say. 12 divided by the number outside the house. 12 divided by 4, and the answer part goes up top in a division problem. So 12 divided by 4 equals 3. All right, so what I'm going to do is copy this same thing right here, but we're going to give it the real division names now, because we don't call them factors and products in division. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to make another house, I'm going to curl it down, and I'm going to recreate the exact same thing I just did. We put the 4 outside. We're putting a 12 on the inside. And we're putting a 3 on top. Okay? I'm also going to put the minus 12 and a 0. And again, I'll tell you about this in a second. All right, so once you have this, now let's label them as if they were, or because they are in a division problem. So in this case, we have 2 words that are very similar and one that's pretty different. Let's start with the answer. The answer to a division problem is the number that's on top of the house there, and that is called a quotient. Q-U-O-T-I-E-N-T. Quotient. I'm going to put a little arrow down to the 3. And then just to remember, because it's kind of new for us here, I'm going to put the word answer above it. A-N-S-W-E-R. I'm going to put it like in a parenthesis. So the quotient, or the answer, lives on top. Okay, that leaves us with the 4 and the 12. So the 12, this word is called the dividend. It's got the word divide in it, right? So it's called the dividend. So it's called D-I-V-I-D, and then E-N-D, E-N-D, the dividend. Or some people call it the dividend, but it's the dividend. And that's the 12. Quotient is the answer. Dividend is the big number that you're about to break into small pieces. And that leaves our buddy the 4. Okay? Like I said, 2 of them sound similar and 1 sounds different. You ready for this one? It's going to make sure we don't get too confused. This one starts with the D-I-V-I again, except for its S-O-R, the divisor. This is the divisor. This is the dividend, and this is the quotient. Whew. So those are the 3 words that we are kind of new words for us now. Divisor is the outside one. And I've got a highlighter here, so I can just highlight it. That's the divisor. This one is the dividend. He's the big number that gets broken up. And the quotient is the answer. Now, pretty quickly on, you're going to find out that we have one more thing that could happen in a division problem, and it would live right out here. All right, so let me walk you through this problem and tell you how it works and then what might be missing from it, okay? So this is our math note section, so I'm just going to kind of draw kind of a half line underneath here just to kind of separate the notes from the example part. All right, so to show you what's happening in here, I'll do the same problem we just did. I've got a 12 on the inside, that's my dividend. I've got a 4 on the outside, which is my divisor. And if I'm just starting this problem off, I'm not going to know what the quotient is, right? I'm not going to know the answer because that's the whole purpose of me doing the problem. So the question I ask myself, and you can set your watches or make note of this the first time you hear me say this, but you'll hear me say it a lot in the next 2 weeks to a month. The first question I ask myself, how many 4s, how many chunks of 4 can fit into, in this case, a 12? So how many 4s can I fit into a 12 without going over? So 1 4 would make 1, 2 4s would make 8, and 3 4s would make 12, right? If I'm looking at my 4s, 1 4 is 4, 8, 12, 16. Okay, 12 is exactly what I want. So 4 times 3. So what I do is 4 goes into 12 3 times, and then here's the next move. I take this number and I go 3 times 4, because 3 times 4 is 12, and then if I subtract that, I get 0, just like our answers right there. And so this one works out fine because 4 goes into 12 evenly, right? It goes in 3 times, and it's not too bad. What if instead it was a 14 on here? 14 as the dividend, and our same 4 over here is the divisor. Okay, so the same question is, how many times can 4 go into, in this case, 14 without going over? All right, 1 time would be 4, 2 times would be 8, 3 times 12, 4 times would be 16. That's too much, so that leaves us with 3. So I put the 3 up top, just like before. But in this time, I go 3 times 4 is 12. And now you see what's going to happen. Now if I subtract these 2, I get 4 take away 2 is 2. And so I've got 2 left over, nothing else to do. So like I said, there is one more piece that's missing from a lot of problems, and it's called a remainder. And that's what happens if a number doesn't go in nice and clean, if there's leftover stuff. Okay, so then this would come all the way back up here, and we would put, in this case, we can call it an R2, right? Sometimes you'll see it lit differently as 2 over 4, because there's a 4 here. But for R's, I think for us for 4th grade, we're just going to keep it at R2 for remainder. And that we'll get into remainder a little bit more in a couple days. But for now, realize there's one more piece that could be in a division problem that would be the remainder. So that's it for today. That's it for today. That's just to kind of get us talking about the same thing so that by Monday, when we start working on some problems, that we're talking the same language and it's not totally brand new to you. So really, we only have about a half page of stuff for you to take a picture of and turn on into Seesaw so we can see this page of notes. Happy Friday. See you Monday.